Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's October 25th, 2015, and this week we're going to do a lesson covering single-string funky Motown riffs. And this week's question was sent in from Carl. He's out in London, England, and he wrote in with this email. I watched your video called Early Motown Guitar and was wondering if you might make another video along that theme. The difference being more of a focus on sounds of the single-tone funk riffs. I think a lot of this sound comes from bass players, but I hear Prince uses them too, and I'm quite sure that I'll also hear the scale note riffs from bands like Parliament and Jackson 5. From Carl in London, England. Well, thanks for writing in, Carl. Single-string scale riffs are definitely a big part of playing funk, and they can also integrate really well against the performance of small chord shots played in and around your funky riff ideas. So in this lesson, we'll be looking at how you can plan your funky single-string riffs on the guitar fingerboard, and how some of the guitar techniques involved in performing them play a role with getting the right type of sound. Plus, we'll look at how you can set your guitar pickups on your electric guitar to get a good quality tone for performing in this type of music. So let's not waste any time. Let's zoom in on the guitar and start discussing all these areas and get right to some of these funky riffs. Well, before we get into some of the riffs that I have for you in this lesson, I wanted to quickly discuss how you can get some different approaches with the tone out of your guitar if you're playing this style of music. Now, of course, I'm playing here a Fender Stratocaster USA Strat, but I got a little bit different pickup configuration. I've got some Seymour Duncans I'm running in this guitar alongside of a Fender stock USA single coil in the middle. Now, by the bridge position, I've got a Seymour Duncan hot rail, and then up by the neck position, I'm running Seymour Duncan cool rail. So what happens in the whole schematics here of everything is if you're running let's say the cool rail up by the neck position, you're going to get a lot warmer tone out of the guitar. And it's kind of a bigger, boomier, fatter tone out of it. But for funk, you may not really want that. You may want a little more thinness. So if you switch it to the fourth position, you're going to turn on that single coil and also turn on, unfortunately, a little bit of noise because the single coils don't buck the hum, of course, so you can get a little bit of interference off of your signal chain. But, you're going to run that alongside in fourth position on a Strat. You're going to run it alongside of that neck position, and you're going to get a really nice snappy tone out of the guitar now. So it's really good for funk. You can get some great tone out of your guitar that way. Now the middle position, if you just turned on the single coil only, that's going to give you a really interesting sound for funk too. It's kind of a more hollow sound. It's a little bit different tone out of the guitar that way when you're running that middle pickup. And when you switch it over to second position, you're going to run that hot rail by the bridge alongside of that single coil in the middle, and it's going to be a little more high end out of the guitar. So it's a little bit, poppier sounding, a lot more high end than what we were dealing with when we had some of the pickups closer to the neck. Now on this guitar, because I'm running a hot rail down off this bridge position, it is just not a great sound at all. It's meant more for distortion, really. I hate it for clean. I think it sounds terrible. So I'm not even going to talk about that pickup position in this particular guitar. But I think I've given you a couple of interesting ideas. I mean, Tellys and Strats are really nice guitars for playing funk, but you can get really nice sounds too out of a Paul Reed Smith or maybe even a Les Paul. I mean, to me, Les Pauls, they are pretty heavy on the output side because you're running the two humbuckers and all that, but a lot of it again is just personal taste. And then there's other things you can do to your guitar. You can install pickup splitter switches, which are going to basically turn some of your humbuckers into more of almost like a single coil sounding approach. But it's all just really comes back to what you think sounds cool. I'm a huge fan of the Strats, so I mean I'm going to be using some stuff for the neck position, some stuff I'll be using which will switch on that humbucker with the single coil as well. So experiment with your sound and shoot for that nice snappy tone because that's a huge part of that funk idea. Well, when it comes to technique for playing funk, one of the main ideas you want to keep in mind is the technique of hybrid picking, but a little bit different approach with it than you would normally use. And the idea around what I want to talk about here is the idea of grabbing the string a little bit more forcefully with the middle finger using hybrid picking and snapping that string so it really creates kind of almost like a violent attack against it. And what happens is the string gets pulled away from the guitar, and then when it snaps back down, it's slamming against the fretboard, and it's creating almost like a funk bass sound out of it. And it sounds way more like almost like a bass part, but of course quite a bit different because the guitar strings are a lot thinner, and you know we can do different ideas on guitar as opposed to the bass. So keep that in mind as something you're going to be hearing me do it as I go through the riff examples, but it's a great way to tune in a lot more to the style of funky guitar is by using hybrid picking with that snap effect against the string. Well, the first riff I want to get going on will involve the coverage of minor tonality sound with our funky single string riff ideas. Now, minor tonality is one of the primary tonalities that we'll find in this style of music, so it's really important to understand the intervals that make up this tonality. And our top priority is going to be the minor third interval. Now, the first example that I got is in E minor, and this means that our minor third is going to work out to be a G natural against the root of E. You put a minor third or a G natural against the E note like that, and you got a nice minor color. Of course, if it was major, it would be a G sharp. But you drop that G sharp down to G natural and you get minor. So the riff that I've created pushes off the root of E, but quickly brings in that G natural tone to establish the minor color. So first of all, just nice and slow here. Here's how this riff sounds played on its own. Okay, I'm going to switch pickups, just give you a little bit different color off the guitar. I'm going to flip on the old humbucker, or off the humbucker, and go into a mix of humbucker and single coil. So you can tell it gives it a little bit more snap out of the guitar that way. And, you know, just so you can hear the riff going by and understand how everything fits together, I do have the chord of an E minor on the loop pedal. But, you know, I really want you to pay attention in this riff to a couple other things as well. You know, there's a D natural that comes along in here. And that's another minor type of color tone. That's a flatted 7 tone against the root of E. That D natural, it's a really nice sound. There's also a C sharp that's kind of a big player in this thing. The C sharp is coming in, and it brings around kind of a Dorian mode color into this thing. And because there's a bit of a lean in a lot of the funk stuff into the bluesy tonality, which we're going to cover in some upcoming examples, that's a really important note to try and mess around with a little bit there, is bringing in that major 6 tone. In the case here of this E scale, it's winding up being a C sharp color on that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to fire up the loop pedal, and I'm going to play this riff with the loop pedal in the background, give you a chance to hear how all this stuff comes together. So here's the loop. And here's the part. Well, the next riff is going to change our tonality up a little bit by honing in on another very prominent tonality found in this style, and that's the use of the dominant 7th chords and the blues-based harmony. So in my next example, I'm going to run through a riff that covers an A dominant 7th sound, and the chord's going to highlight, you know, sort of a blues-based influence now. So these dominant 7th chords are quite unique in that they have both a major third, and they also have a flat 7, minor 7 interval to them. And the example riff that I have for you is going to target both these intervals from an A 7th chord. which turns out to be C sharp on the major third and there, and then on the flat 7 end we're going to have the old G natural showing up there against that A chord. So let's begin by just having a listen to this riff. It's kind of an interesting idea. What's going to happen here is it's basically the exact same rhythmic pattern, but we're going to sort of flip around which notes that we're going to highlight. So it's based around off of almost like you might as well say a power chord of the open 5th string. We start out like that, and then we're going to do a quick hammer-on that's a grace note, and then we're going to do some hammer-ons that are continuous here, moving from an F sharp into a G natural, just like that. And then we're going to reverse it. So then we're going to start the same again, head up, do the grace note hammer-on up higher now, and then go down lower for those hammer-ons. So we're just going to sort of flip-flop it back and forth like that. So here's the idea. Okay, so, let's go and break down how the influence of these intervals plays a role around that A7 sound, because I do have the A7 in the loop pedal. So I'm going to fire that up, and I'm going to flip to another pickup here, so we're going to get a little bit of hum off that single coil coming in. But I'm going to play it with the loop pedal now and give you a chance to hear how all this fits together. So here's the loop. All right, and here's the part. Well, in my last example, I'm going to run through another riff in more the blues-based tonality. However, this time I'll be adding a chord shot into the mix to spice up the idea and just kind of boost the sound of the harmony for the part. Now, to get started, I'd just like to go ahead and perform the idea that I've composed and give you a chance to hear how it sounds. It starts off a low E6 string, and we're going to do a chord shot up at the 7th fret, barring on the top 3 strings. Have a little bit of scratches in there, and then we're going to come around to a hammer-on. That's going to take place on the 3rd string from 6th fret to 7th fret. Then we're going to run up to the 2nd string at 9th fret, and we're going to do a 16th note triplet, and then walk down from an F sharp to an E. So that first measure is like this. Then we're going to start off pretty much the same again, but we're going to go to a different position here. We're going to take care of a G to a G sharp, and we're going to come around here to getting a D in, and then we're going to bring in the root E. So the two halves of that riff together sound like this. All right, now this is kind of an interesting idea here. You can tell that E root tone is really predominant right from the start of the riff, with its use just right off that open E6 string. And the chord shot that comes in on the upper 3 guitar strings is kind of unique though. At first glance, it just looks like a B minor triad. But when you really analyze it, what we're building off of here is the sound of an E dominant 9 chord. Now the chord's 5th chord tone, and the D chord tone, they belong to the B minor, and they're basically breaking it down off of the root of the B minor is the 5th of the E9. And then when we look at some of the other tones of the B minor chord, we have in the E9 we have a F sharp, which is part of that B chord as a 5th. So B minor is 5th of F sharp, and that's the 9th in respect to the E9 there. And basically, when you look at the chords broken down, the B is the 5th of the E, and the F sharp is the 9th. And in the B chord, we also have a D note as well, and that's just the flat 7 of that E9. So, everything's basically there, but it's just sort of a highlight as a part of the larger E dominant 9. So the rest of the licks and the intervals that are used in this riff are basically chord tones around E9. The only thing that's kind of a little bit unique there is we have that G sharp roll in. So that's kind of the G natural, I should say, to the G sharp rolling in. So it's kind of a minor third, major third sound. If you're familiar with some of the blues concepts, I mean, that's a really common idea in blues, is to use both the minor third and the major third when you're playing licks. So it's a really cool, funky single note line sound, and has a nice correlation to the blues-based idea with that dominant seventh harmony, kind of, you know, all in all, playing around with the concept of the E dominant ninth in the background. So what I'm going to do is I have an E9 riffing out on the loop pedal, so I'm going to fire that up, give you a chance to hear that, and basically over top of that I'm going to play this entire riff here, give you a good idea how it all fits together. So here's the E9. Okay, and here's the riff. Performing single note line riffs in funk can be not just a great sound to study, but it can also help guitar players discover several new techniques and ways of dialing in tone, as well as how to use a chord and interval harmony in a number of really unique ways. You know, funk guitar in general can also be somewhat challenging rhythmically, but again, that's a critical skill for any guitar player to develop. So what better way to develop it than through a fun style like funk guitar? And since you know, the guitar chord types in this style can be highlighted in some really unique ways in the style itself, playing funk also offers us a chance to get a lot better with understanding intervals and our chord tones on the neck as well. So it does a multitude of things, and it's a lot of fun to jam on. Anyhow, that's about all the time I have for today. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if possible, please consider a small donation to help fund the guitar lessons project I'm running here. Every little bit counts, and it does run up costs as we go through these lessons. But otherwise, you know, have yourself a really great week, and I will catch up with you next time. Bye for now. I'd like to take a moment to mention another guitar video lesson project I've started. It's a unique guitar lesson approach that I'm doing online, and it's not like anything I've done before. Best of all, it's 100% free. I've called this approach Guitar Micro Lessons, and they're a great way to learn a few new licks or riffs or chord shapes each week. Now, these guitar micro lessons are quick and easy to learn from. They're very short, with each lesson running between only 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes in length. They're published to YouTube from Monday to Thursday on my other Guitar Blog Update YouTube channel, and you can either subscribe to that channel to guarantee getting each new episode, or just visit the channel whenever it's convenient for you and check out the new micro lessons in the playlist on the Guitar Blog Update channel's homepage. The Music Reading Phase 1 ebook has over 30 pages of comprehensive project lessons covering the entire fifth reading position on the guitar. Music reading charts and drills will work to help students memorize the placement of the fifth position notes, including important sharp and flat tones. Several original and classic pieces of sheet music will help students to gain a solid understanding for this region of the neck. Rhythm studies, duration examples, plus song and location drills along with 19 MP3 audio tracks makes this one of the best music reading courses available online. Music Reading Phase 1 is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com.